Hey everybody, welcome back to Contest Prep University. I'm Joe Klemczewski with Adam Atkinson. And Adam, when I presented you a couple of options for a topic today, I was almost hoping you wouldn't take this one, but I totally understand it. This weekend, a couple of friends, clients started messaging me saying, "Hey, did you see another person died? Heart failure, dehydration, that sort of thing." And it just, I have to be honest, it doesn't really move the needle for me anymore because we've been through this so many times. But if this could be the first time somebody interacts with this kind of information and it's helpful, then it's well worth it. What were the circumstances of this young lady's death, if you know the details?
Yeah, so doing the actual research before posting or talking about this, so Jody was actually a follower of mine, and she did end up passing away. She wasn't competing that weekend, so
Mm.
according to her coach, who I know through the industry, said that she wasn't on any diuretics or DNP to his knowledge. But it sounds like, something caused this dehydration. Again, it wasn't a show day scenario, but dehydration was the ultimate cause of her death. You know, to the last of my knowledge, her friends who were there, she had a competitor that she helped get to the stage. She was sick that day, so she was vomiting a lot. So, we really need to wait to see exactly what, the autopsy reports show, depending on how far the family wanted to go to investigate it. Um, and then, that I think it takes a while for us to really know the truth, but more the reason to talk about, I think what was kind of disappointing is a lot of coaches use this as a pedestal right away to say, don't use bad peak week practices. And that really caused a lot of confusion for one, what actually happened, and two, it kind of threw her current coach under the bus because she wasn't even competing. So people are like, it's his fault. She was under his guidance. And, death is a very tough topic and it's complicated because there's more to it. Unfortunately, when the needle points that direction, we make the assumption that someone cut water to get ready for a show. And that was my immediate thought, but you don't want to necessarily always be the first to post. And come to find out she wasn't even competing. And that kind of puts a lot of stress on the family, the people involved, before we can actually get an answer. So, with that being said, I think it's a great reminder to tell people, one, life is short and valuable. And, we hopefully get into the bodybuilding world for our health. And this should be a reminder of how far things can get taken. Um, it's a reminder for coaches that sometimes our clients do more than what we tell them. And then that puts pressure on us, like right now, to, let's educate more about dehydration. Hopefully, diuretics are a thing of the past, and just educate people on how things can really turn south. Even though this wasn't the case from what we know in this situation, just re-educate people on, why we don't cut water on show day or use diuretics, and how I personally think diuretics are probably the most dangerous drug that is unfortunately sometimes used in bodybuilding.
Yeah, it's certainly an opportunity to cover both sides, and it is rare that this happened to somebody not on contest day or the evening before. So you mentioned that she had been ill. Do you know if she was actually dieting and getting ready for any kind of contest prep endeavor?
I don't think that she was in anything immediate. I think the last thing I saw, she was like 16 weeks out. So
And this, I have no assertion that would have any credibility whatsoever. I'm just asking a question. But do you know, or was there any talk? Was she using a GLP-1 of any sort?
not to my knowledge, no.
And the reason I bring that up my clients who have chosen to go that route, you do end up sometimes, depending on the compound and the person, with enough nausea that even drinking water is difficult. I've had to really coach some clients like, man, you really need to prevent dehydration for this exact reason. Um, so if you think this was just some kind of typical virus where she was sick, could have been norovirus, could have been the flu, could have been COVID. Um, it would be extremely rare for somebody to be that dehydrated to immediately go into cardiac failure and ultimately pass away. When you were reading and maybe even listening to some of the reports from family, did you get any indication that there were any other kind of comorbidities?
So I think that that is still to be determined, and with somebody so young, and this is where the death thing's really hard because people do die and people die for weird reasons. And, people in our bodybuilding industry, pass away, but it's maybe not as common as, other sports. Soccer's actually a little bit more fatal than bodybuilding, funny enough, and it's just the things that you don't think about, but it really sounds the alarm and kind of can point the finger towards things. But I think it just needs to be further investigated to really know. But I think the biggest thing is to her coaches, protocol and knowledge, you know, she shouldn't have been on any of the things that are maybe in question, which I totally agree with, especially with one, how far out she was in prep, and two, just with, what he has honestly put out there as this is, kind of what our last conversations were, and she wasn't on any of these things that maybe, could have contributed to more dehydration.
Mm. Yeah, there are some medications, there are some urinary or kidney conditions that could, change mineral content and dynamics a little bit that could cause or exacerbate things like, dehydration. But I mean, it just sounds like if she was sick and was so low on fluid consumption, in my opinion, it seems like there would have to be some other mitigating circumstance that would just take that from normal, being low in water and literal death. But let's take a quick pivot to why this is too prevalent in actual contest prep, particularly the day or two of a contest. And when I heard of this, I immediately, as I mentioned at the beginning of our podcast, just got a little bristly in making those assumptions, as you said, that this is somebody doing something that was clearly dangerous, which now we know not to be the case. But at the same time, even when you are sick or especially when you're sick, to really pay attention to what you're putting in your body in terms of supplements, medications, food, water, etc. I know as a parent, you think of those things. Your kids are sick and you're trying to, make sure they're safe and you're avoiding any complications. But with your own health as an adult, I think it's easier to kind of forget those things. Like I'll be okay. Like I know what I'm doing. I feel fine, and all of a sudden you're not. But let's go to the peaking things that we've railed against for now decades. Dehydration is serious because it's not just the lack of water where your body says, okay, I don't have enough water, that spins a certain dial and it's bad news. A series of reactions happen which are all implicated in homeostasis, and one of those would be blood pressure. And so, all of a sudden your hydration levels are so low, and now you don't have the blood volume, and your heart just doesn't have enough even resistance to pump, and you can go into cardiac arrest. Go through if you can, Adam, because we've got so much information out there. If you were interested in making sure you were using water, minerals, carbohydrates to your advantage, not only avoiding things like cardiac arrest and death, but to truly look your best, just go to YouTube and search Contest Prep University hydration, Prep University water. You will see several hour-long features. You will see three-part manifestos. You will see multi part series, probably to the tune of 2 dozen, that go through step by step, what to do and what to avoid. But going back to exactly how this can create cardiac arrest in general in anybody, even if you have a 12-year-old daughter playing soccer on a July day, what happens in the body when somebody starts to manipulate water or dehydrate, and then adds the complications of extremely manipulating minerals.
Yeah, honestly, it's really easy for your body to swing. Your body's constantly regulating homeostasis. So hypokalemia is really easy to swing into. And basically that'll squeeze every last bit of water out of your heart if you're dehydrated. And also just the swings in sodium and potassium really just affect the electrical currents that are, sending the signals to your body for your heart to beat. And it is really simple for somebody to take a diuretic and swing into that state, even if they are hydrated and die. And that's where I'm always like, I really think that diuretics are the most lethal thing that people tend to come across in bodybuilding, which they shouldn't. And unfortunately, times like this are times we're doing another podcast on it because, somebody maybe got misinformed potentially, or just because this could be a potential issue at play that maybe she did this without her coach's knowledge. I kind of put it on ourselves on let's keep putting this information out there so people stop doing this in case that was part of the issue on why Jody passed away.
Hmm. Yeah, you mentioned the electrical component of cardiac arrest, and when I mentioned you dehydrate and blood volume goes down so low that then your heart can't even push out anything with resistance. To your point, the cranial nerve, specifically vagus, that stimulates the heart at the sinoatrial node, just like any other motor unit, that junction between the nerve end plate and the muscle tissue, it does take electrical impulse. And when you start changing sodium and potassium, particularly what we see people do is increase potassium and decrease sodium, you're so changing both the osmolarity of where that water is. And so now water is not in the cells, it's not even in the heart muscle cell, just like it's not in your bicep muscle cell or quadricep muscle cell. But then you can disrupt the actual conductive experience that your heart is encountering from your brain. So you just get kind of a double or triple whammy effect of the perfect storm for your heart to just stop. And like I said, you could be just a normal, healthy, even younger person and experience the same thing on a construction site because you're on a roof and you're dehydrated, or a young athlete on a hot summer day. It's just very unfortunate that on our sport, uh, coaches, authors, competitors still hold on to this age old, I'm talking 50, 60, 70-year-old, ridiculously stupid information that dehydration is actually helpful. I've said this for 20 some years. If it were helpful, if you would even get your best look, I would probably try to figure out a way through bioengineering of the right supplements, the right food intake, the right circumstances, to say here's how we can do that most safely. Yes, dehydration is necessary, so let's do it this way, but it's just not. I mean, dehydration makes you look worse. Your muscle tissue is flatter, softer, smaller, so the cutaneous covering, the fascia, the skin, the interstitial tissues just end up with such little volume that you absolutely look your worst. So the irony and the dichotomy of risking all of that literal death to ultimately end up looking your worst is just so ridiculous to me that's why I started off this session saying I'm just kind of done with this topic. My gosh, I've been writing for magazines for almost 30 years, and now in the digital space. Um, I kind of feel like if people don't know this by now, I don't know how, where we go. Like, how do we do it better? But again, knowing that this particular woman, Jody, uh, it was just even more innocuous than that. All the more reason to say if that could happen even when you're just mildly potentially or moderately dehydrated. I mean, consider how harsh it is when you're following a protocol that literally does that to the nth degree.
Yeah, absolutely. We're hoping that, with tragedy, we can save some lives here. Just again, not saying exactly what happened, but with, just having some experience and a lot of experience in the industry and why we do things the way we do. I think it's a great time to remind people and talk about it. But I'm a lot like you, where I'm like, gosh, I wish we didn't have to exhaust ourselves and go over this topic again. One thing I'd really like to see is more education within the NPC, and and IFBB. And it's not even just up to them, but I think it's up to the coaches to, keep informed and keep their clients informed. I know this is something that, I do group Zoom calls, and a lot of my clients might ask me, when do I start the dehydration process? And I take that as an opportunity to explain to people why we don't do that. And I do these calls daily. So it's awesome that a lot of my clients can, pick up on this stuff weekly. But it's just hard to reach everyone at the same time, and it's hard to reach, there was a kid who went pro, Sam Sulek. It's only his second show. Like, maybe he doesn't know not to dehydrate because, gosh, who goes pro in two shows? It's everyone's going to learn different things at different times. And hopefully we escape the brink of death, with finding the right information at the right times.
Well, I can appreciate, especially I detect in your tone, this is a much more somber event than what we've typically covered in the past. Because when it's a coach or series of coaches doing things that are this dangerous and harsh and literally cause death, under the pure definition of manslaughter, I think that would apply. You and I have gotten angry, and I don't mind calling people out and saying I wish prosecution offices in different states would take some action. But now on this side of the coin, to some of the points you were making, as coaches, even not in contest prep with clients, to be covering issues of greater health. Not always just body fat loss, body fat loss, body fat loss. Are we going to make it? How's the progress going? But literally looking at the qualitative issues of what we're suggesting. If we're helping people with meal planning with things like how much water should I drink? Hey, coach, should I even care about, sodium levels and that sort of thing? Like, these are probably areas that most coaches are not even discussing with clients. And again, I do take under consideration the fact that you said she might have been ill, and so that is definitely a factor. And we don't know what genetic type of issues or other comorbidities and health complications she could have been facing, medications and so forth that could have taken her just across the line with a moderate level of dehydration. So again, we talk a lot about scope of practice in all of our companies and projects, from where we certify coaches through the National Academy of Metabolic Science, the Sports Nutrition Association, certainly our Apex Coach Business Mentorship Program. All the things we do, we start and end with scope of practice. And I think for even a competitor just working with a coach, maybe it should be your impetus to ask some of those questions to see if your coach is even really qualified enough in the health sciences, or maybe that's just not an arena you need their participation. You have those conversations with your primary care physician, you do some research on your own, but all the more reason just to really dig into some of the health quality issues around the sport. I love that you said, there are other performance sports that are far more dangerous with higher fatality rates. And maybe we're kind of lucky that ours is low, but I would certainly still like to prevent these from this side of the table.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was pretty much everything I kind of wanted to cover there, aside from, with just social media, if people could just kind of take a pause and gather some information before they post, because I know the coach and I felt really bad. I actually kind of immediately sent him a message and said, you know, I'm really sorry for your loss, for one, and I'm sorry that you're having to go through something even deeper on the fact that, all these people are now putting her death in your hands and they don't have all the information. And it is kind of an easy assumption to make. It is something that people do. But I said, I feel like I know you well enough that I know that you don't do that. And I just wanted to come here and support you and let you know, like, you know, hey, I'm not blaming you and you have a friend over here and sorry for your loss. And then also sorry for all the fingers that are kind of being pointed at you when people don't have that information yet.
For sure. And like I said, I can really appreciate the fact that you've taken such a humane approach and a tempered approach. And that's why I wanted to dive into both sides of this topic with our conversation today. But again, anybody who is interested in learning more of that biophysiology in terms of how this could even happen, because it can be very harsh. I have spoken to professors and academics and people who have the health science education to know how dangerous this is, and yet that information is still used for combat sports, for people to lose up to 20 pounds in the last 4 or 5 days of a weigh-in. And gosh, I mean, even when it's somewhat medically supervised, and you go to some UFC camps and places like that where they do have protocols and procedures and staff, it still begs the question, why? Like why would you take someone literally to the brink of death when we see with Jody that it's a line that's pretty subtle sometimes, and you don't have to be unhealthy to even cross that line. So please go back and look at some of our information and make sure that you're doing it more safely and, as I said, more effectively for your own contest prep. But even beyond that, even just in normal day-to-day training, you're going through a lot of fluid and mineral dynamics with training, consuming high amounts of water, different levels of food intake depending on how much whole food and processed food. You could be, super high or super low in a mineral like sodium or potassium, and create an imbalance of which you're unaware. And something like this can just happen like that. So all the more reason just to be a little bit more careful. But Adam, thanks again for again your temperance in this, and in reaching out to that coach, and hopefully we can, as you said, continue just to keep people a little bit healthier. One last message for you guys, because we get a lot of questions like this in our D1 club, Contest Prep University D1 club. I definitely want to extend an invitation to our members to talk about this. So kind of privately as a group, but the seriousness of this will carry over there a little bit. And we'll see you guys all next time in Contest Prep University.